What's up, y'all? It is episode number 272 of Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto. I am your host, Elizabeth D'Alto, and this is September's solo episode. Today we are focusing on cultivating joy in difficult times, and this is also the solo birthday episode that I do every single year. And I picked this topic specifically because the last couple years have been ridiculously challenging for me. And, challenging is a very subjective thing that varies for people. So it's all relative, but it's been super challenging. And amidst all the challenges, it's also been amazing and miraculous. And there has been so much joy. And, this is something being out in the wild world, especially on the interwebs and social media, that I am always just curious if people are, out there doing their work, struggling if they're struggling, dealing with their challenges, but also, are you enjoying your life? Are you finding moments of joy? Are you happy? Are you content? Do you feel fulfilled? And if not, hopefully today's episode will give you some insight on how to connect with those things. It can't be 24/7. We're not going to be in our joy 24/7. Anyone who says they are is likely I don't want to say bullshitting you, but probably spiritually bypassing through most of their life. But you never know. I'm not judging. I'm just suspicious when people come across that way. So we're going to get into some of my favorite things today that keep me going, especially through difficult times. And I want to remind everyone before we dive in that enrollment and registration for the Unconsume Yourself Live Training 2018 is officially open. You could check that out over at wildsoulmovement.com/unconsume. And that is a made-up word. It gets like the red underlines in spell check every time. So I'll spell it for you just in case. It's UNCONSUME. So go to wildsoulmovement.com/unconsume. This is a 7-week live training program. I run it online. You get lifetime access to the materials. And it's really great. This is my 3rd year running it. And on that page, I actually this year included screenshots. Everyone's name is blocked out, anything that could identify anyone to protect people's privacy. But so you could see the types of breakthroughs and the progress and the results and the openings and the transformations and the healings that are happening for people within the program. I took some screen grabs from some past groups that have done this specific training with me. I also upgraded and updated the curriculum this year, so I'm super excited to kick that off. We start September 25th, so if you're listening in real time, pretty soon. So check that out, and if it calls to you, I would absolutely love to have you. Anyway, let's get into cultivating joy, shall we? So I'm actually recording this on my birthday, on the morning of my 35th birthday. I've been looking forward to this birthday for months. Not that there was anything wrong with 34, but the number 35 just felt like it had some gravity to it, like it was a milestone. I felt the same way about my 30th birthday. I literally cried at midnight. When the clock struck midnight on my 30th birthday, there was just something amazing about crossing into a new decade. I was talking to a friend about this last night who's actually 29. She turns 30 this coming February. And I was like, yeah, it felt so good. Something I had not done was allowed myself to acknowledge truly how difficult my 20s were, like until they were over. I remember it being, I was in Asheville, North Carolina. I was speaking at a workshop with some dear friends, actually, Jill Coleman, Jade Tita, Jillian Tita. And I remember just feeling like this relief, like, oh, my 20s are over. So I'm not having that kind of a feeling this morning. It's feeling more of like a forward momentum, like I'm crossing a threshold into something really expansive and really deep. And as well, I feel like I left a lot of stuff behind in 34. Just a lot of nonsense, a lot of bullshit, a lot of emotional stuff, a lot of historical stuff in my family and relationships, just a lot of healing. And so a lot of the joy that I'm going to share with you in this episode really has to do with creating space for things that are so much more enjoyable and just so much more aligned with who I am now. If you listen to this podcast, you're probably someone who's into growth and expansion and healing and transformation. And those things are not always super pretty, like the process of it. But man, the results of it, the rewards, what do they say? The juice is worth the squeeze. So here are some things. This might be a shorter episode too. I just hit record. We'll see how long we go here. But I wrote down a list. I'm going to run you through the list and then I'll stop and I'll talk about each one. But things that bring me joy: following the signs, allowing myself to just fully engage with life's mystery and miracles. And I'm saying that first because I think it might be number one, and I'll tell you a story. Throughout the course of my life, many pivotal moments, I'll often get people, sometimes it's numerous people, depending on what's going on, reach out to me and be like, oh my goodness, you were in my dream. And it was so vivid, I just had to tell you. And that's always the really interesting marker of it. People are like, I don't usually have dreams like this, or I've only had dreams like this a couple of times in my life that were this vivid. And just this morning, I woke up to another message like that from someone in the Patreon, and it was just a beautiful, amazing dream. I won't share the details of it, but it was so relevant, and it was so awesome. And I don't even know this person. She lives in North Carolina. We've never met in real life, and yet she had this crazy, vivid dream and felt compelled to share it with me. And I love that stuff. So there's 2 books that I've read in my life. The Alchemist, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and Outrageous Openness by Tosha Silver, that are all about just following those signs, engaging with the magic and the mystery and the miracles of life. And just, I know some people are cynical about living this way, and they're like, well, it's just confirmation bias, or you're just making meaning out of things that don't have meaning. And listen, maybe that's true, but the amount of joy it brings me, and the amount of meaning and as guided as I feel by God and life and the universe and whatever forces are conspiring to assist me, I am into it, and that brings me so much freaking joy. So other people might not be into it, but I am so into it. Simplicity. And this is something that's relevant right now because part of the Unconsume Yourself training is all about simplifying. It's about detoxing your life physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. And a lot of that has to do with simplifying. A lot of that has to do with looking at how complex life is and can be. We let it get out of hand, the complexities of life, and how can we simplify and where can we simplify? And over the course of the last year, I've simplified my lifestyle. Recently, I moved to a smaller place. I downsized. I moved to an area where I would have access to more things, so it would just be easier for me. It would be easier for me to do things that bring me joy, like spend time with my friends, go to comedy shows, go to open mics, now that I'm doing stand-up comedy myself, go to exercise classes, have a variety of different yoga classes available because I'm really picky. And I actually found this amazing studio. They have a couple locations near me called Sweat Yoga. That is so awesome. They give you time in the class to just flow and do your own thing. And those of you who listen to this podcast know that I always want time and space to do my own thing. I hate being told what to do. Obviously, I love learning from people who are experts, but sometimes yoga classes are irritating. I'm not going for philosophy. I'm going to move my body. I'm going to feel good. And I like to go to hot yoga. I'm going to sweat. I'm going to detox. So I found this amazing studio. It's a dark room. There are no mirrors. They play awesome music. It's just so good. And then this boxing class, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me posting about it. And again, it's like the theme, right? All of the workout classes I enjoy are all similar. I like SoulCycle. They all happen in a dark room with awesome music where it's not about the mirror. It's not about the other people in the class. It's about having an amazing, deep experience. And it's super sensual. It's super personal. So those things bring me enormous joy. And a lot of it came from simplicity. I moved into an apartment. Isn't that funny? I was living in a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. Often people think about, upgrading their life and things are getting bigger and better. All I wanted to do was move into an apartment. I wanted to move into a smaller space. I wanted it to feel cozier. I wanted to have amenities and access to things. I wanted to have some things taking care of me. I don't have to take out the trash. I just drop it in the trash chute, which, by the way, this might sound simple, but even a garbage chute, simple, silly things like that bring me so much joy sometimes because you just drop it. I don't even know where it goes. I don't know where it lands, but I hear it landing. I hear it crashing into the heaping pile of trash, and for some reason that's fun to me. So simplicity, which leaves room for fun, simple pleasures, simple joys. I've been starting to use this hashtag lately, small things, big joy. There's a saying, the small hinge swings the big door. You've probably heard me say that on the podcast before. And it's just so freaking true. Like, this might sound so silly to some of you, but even things like orange juice brings me so much joy. And I think because for a long time when I was like having a weird experience with food, I was like afraid of fruit and afraid of sugar. I have some background in some education in nutrition and like glycemic index and all these things. And I was like, y'all, I love fruit and I love orange juice. And like literally every time I take a sip of orange juice, I'm so freaking happy. And again, some of you might be listening to this like, really? This is what this bitch is talking about right now, orange juice. But I'm telling you, allow yourself to take wild pleasure and enjoyment in even tiny, simple little things. So there's more. Gifts. I love gifts. GIF, if you don't know what I'm talking about. They're these short, repeating, little animated images. I love them on Facebook. I love them in text messages. Even this morning, my mom sent me a happy birthday message, and I responded with a GIF of Leslie Knope, if those of you are familiar with Parks and Rec, and it said, thank you, and she was like pointing, and my mom says, gee, you sure really do love those GIFs, don't you? And I'm like, yes, I love them so much. They bring me so much joy. So simplicity, simple little things, but also simplifying my life. Oh my God, because when things are difficult, we need space. We need space to breathe. We need space to be able to tap into ourselves, to hear our guidance and our inner wisdom, to pray, to meditate, to tap in, to tune in, to get grounded so that we can make amazing decisions and we can do things that feel good to us, that align for us, that are in integrity, that honor our needs, that respect ourselves, that are self-caring, self-loving, we can be in better relationships with people because we have space for it and we're not just, surviving and feeling like we're treading water all the time. So even allowing for just simple little joys, simple little pleasures. It's like little boosts of energy. It's like little espresso shots of energy to infuse our life all throughout our days, our weeks, our months, and our years, even if they're challenging, with moments of joy and bliss. And we need that. We need it so much. And don't let anyone talk you into thinking you don't need it or you don't deserve it. I think there's a lot of rhetoric, a narrative online about you can't take a break, you don't deserve a break, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, nah, everyone has to, because we do it for our health, we do it for our sanity, we do it for space, we do it to reconnect so that we can stay on purpose and on point and on mission and in service and be available for the people and things in our lives that are important to us. So other things that bring me joy, this might sound weird, but solidarity and inclusion. Y'all, if you listen to the podcast regularly, you have probably listened to Desiree Adaway's episode. And, one of the things that she asked in that interview is, that she likes to ask people is, what radicalized you? And, for me, I've always, since I was little, since the very first time I read To Kill a Mockingbird, and then in high school when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, as well as books like The Secret Life of Bees, books that took place in the period of the original civil rights movement, I was always so into that stuff. I always felt very passionate about those things. But it really wasn't until the last 2 years that I started paying closer attention. I started to notice more what was going on in the world and tune into it, not tune out, right? A lot of people, when they're on their spiritual journey or when they're on their growth or transformation path, kind of isolate themselves or insulate themselves, rather, put themselves in a bubble. And I had certainly done this, I used to be one of those people who didn't watch the news because it was negative. And, we're not going to change the world. We can't really help people. We can't really be of full service if we don't know what's going on with like all of the world. And I'm not saying that you need to know every single political issue that's going on or every crisis or disaster that's happening all around the world. That could be overwhelming. But I mean, paying attention to people's experiences other than yours, looking at what's going on outside of your bubble with people who don't look like you, who don't think like you, who don't have access to the things you have access to. And so it might sound weird to say that this brings me joy because it also brings me so much sadness and grief and anger and rage. But the reason why it brings me joy is because it feels like fully living. It feels like fully engaging, not leaving anyone out, being inclusive, doing the work, though it's deeply uncomfortable and deeply challenging to unpack How have I been harmful? How have I been offensive? How have I run my business in ways that are actually not aligned with what is my highest integrity now? And resolving it, healing it, doing things about it, taking actions, right? It's not perfect. There's still messy things. Of course, there's still things I could do better, but being fully engaged in that work brings me so much joy because I love being a global citizen. I love being a person who can be safe for all kinds of people. And again, it's not perfect, but I'm always working on it, and I'm committed to that for life. It's not like a fad. It's not a trend. And just being engaged and not leaving anything or anyone out, that feels so good to me. So that brings me a lot of joy, which is connected to the next thing, which is loving through pain. And that's loving others and loving ourselves, but also having incredible emotional boundaries. Boundaries in general, but especially emotional and energetic boundaries where I'm really discerning about who I engage with, how I engage with people, what I engage in, and, saying goodbye. There's a lot of people I said goodbye to in my life in the last couple of years. And there's some people who they weren't like bad people. They weren't whatever. They just weren't aligned for me anymore. It's like I don't like what they bring out of me. I was having a conversation with a friend at dinner last night, and there's a lot of people will say no one can make you feel anything, and I used to be of that mindset. I used to believe that, and feelings are a choice and blah blah blah. But now that I have really studied and understand and work with people around all kinds of deep emotional wounds and traumas and family history and things like that, if you have trauma in your system. Yeah, people can make you feel something. Someone can trigger something that you would never choose to feel, but you are feeling, right? And trying to talk yourself out of it is a bypass rather than just like feeling it and loving yourself anyway and accepting it and being so kind and so gentle with yourself through even the things that you don't want to feel. And you could be accountable and you could be responsible, but you also don't have to let other people off the hook. And I read this amazing post by this woman, Demetria Stathopoulos, I'm saying that right, on Facebook, who I connected with recently. And she wrote, emotional sobriety includes knowing when engaging isn't worth the effort on your time and energy, knowing when the desire for communication has ended and when it has become a battle of ego, knowing how to let go in love, knowing when to set a boundary. And I had a brief experience this year with a man who I really, really, really had high hopes for, and it just didn't work out anywhere near the way I thought it might. And I really, my heart was broken. It crushed me. But it was such an amazing learning experience because I was able to see so many of my old patterns, one of which was staying engaged with people that I know aren't healthy for me and trying to make it okay and trying to keep people in my life because I love them and I enjoy them, but it just isn't good. And so I finally had to just let this person go after a couple of months and not reach out anymore. Even on the days, there would be things, you all know what this is like when you have someone in your life, whether it's a friend or someone who you've been romantic with, and something reminds you of them and you're like, I want to share this with them so bad. But what's the point? Why continue to open the loop? Why continue to reopen the wound? Why keep a connection going that we know damn well is unhealthy for us? And so like Demetria said in that post, it's a battle of the ego. So really looking at ego stuff and then letting it go. But again, not judging myself, being so kind, being so gentle with myself about it, the same way I would with a client or a loved one or a small child, and just moving through it with lots of love, with lots of kindness, with lots of gentleness, full acceptance. I have a niece now. I'm an auntie. I am fully allowing myself to enjoy this new little person. Oh my goodness. All of you that are parents know this, and who have been aunties or uncles or whatever before, or, have close friends with little babies. It just feels so special and so exciting because my brother, who up until this point was my baby, now has a baby. Oh my goodness. Because he's my younger brother by about 5 years. And so, Oh my God, when he was born, that was one of the happiest moments of my life, when I was 4 years old or 5 years old, however old I was when Mikey was born. But it's so amazing now to be an aunt, and I'm going home more, which also means I'm spending more time with my family, which is sometimes challenging, but just taking all of it, just letting all of it be like exquisite and perfect and just so enjoyable, and just really extracting the joy and the amazingness of the moments and watching her grow. And my brother sends me pictures like a couple days a week, and to just see her little face growing and changing all the time is so cool. It's so cool. And to see my brother's face in her face. Oh my God, it's so amazing. Full expression. So I hadn't picked a theme for 2018, and full expression emerged as the theme. And so that was a large part of this last year for me. And what's been so incredible about it is realizing all the different forms of expression. There's creative expression, there's emotional expression, there's expressions of love and gratitude and generosity and solidarity and being with people. So full expression, which to me is also about not holding back. It's about embracing the fullness of who I am and shining it out, and not worrying about whether or not it's going to be received. And that's something I'm still working on, but that brings me joy. And it also brings me joy every time I'm like nervous or afraid, or I think it won't be received, and then it is. And it's like, it's really safe to be me. It's really okay to be me, which is something I know I've certainly struggled with myself, and I know other people struggle with sometimes. Like, am I too much? Am I too much for this world? Am I too much for this person? And just every time it gets validated that I'm not, or that I am, and I don't care. So again, the theme of this episode is cultivating joy during difficult times. And I'm going through right now just this list of things that bring me joy, despite anything else that's going on internally or externally, any struggles, any pain, any grief, any traumas, anything that I'm working through. I can always tap into these things that I'm sharing with you and find some joy, a semblance of joy. It doesn't have to be to put me in this permanent state. Joy is not necessarily a permanent state, but it's something we can access anytime, and it's healing, it's energizing, it's like a balm for the soul and for the heart and for the mind. Healing and learning, not looking away, not giving up, staying diligent, but also honoring and respecting phases and cycles. Music and dance. Y'all, music is so amazing. And again, also, for many years, I kind of had gone into my own period of selective spiritual bypass. And one of the things, in studying like consciousness and conscious language and positive psychology and all these things that I had deprived myself of were certain things: music, television, movies, things that I've always loved, but thought, they were negative, or it's polluting my mind, or it's harshing my vibe. And so I've really, in the last 2 years, gone back to some things, certain music that I love so much that really activates who I am. Like, I can move my body in a way that feels true to me. I can feel energized. I could sing in my car. And yeah, the lyrics might not be the best on like the 90s hip hop that I love. Like, yeah, some of the old R&B songs that are my favorite are super friggin' codependent. Like, it's not how I want to live my life, but the beats are good, and the rhythm and the voices and the soul, and the way it gets me in my body, like in my hips, wanting to move, even in my car. It makes driving more enjoyable. It's so good. Why would I deprive myself of these things? Surrendering, just being here with life, just being okay with that life can be friggin' hard, y'all. It could be miraculous and amazing too, but this shit is no joke. And I've never been one to pretend that things are like going well when they're not. But I have been one to like totally delude myself that things are going better than they are. And that's something, especially after my last relationship, where the whole time I thought things were going way better than they actually were, and didn't realize until afterwards like how unhealthy and dysfunctional it was. But just allowing for all of it. And I think that's like a common theme that's come up several times already, probably. Laughing. Comedy. Oh my goodness. It has been so fun to deeply engage with comedy because I actually am allowing myself to pursue it and to try it out. I have loved stand-up comedy since I was little, since I was 8 years old. And this year, after a couple of things, Tiffany Haddish, Ali Wong, Whitney Cummings, just seeing some amazing female comedians and being like, you know what? I live in Los Angeles now. I'm in like the hub of entertainment. I'm going to start doing comedy and I'm going to see what happens. It has been so fun. I mean, it is challenging, but part of that is watching more comedy, like watching comedians I wouldn't normally watch because I'm not just watching it now for the enjoyment of it, but for the study of it. And so that has been so fun because what feels better than laughing other than like orgasms? I don't know, but that's great. Orgasms, that's on the list. I'm not really going to dive into that because that's personal. So I'll let you take that one and run with it on your own. But not forcing anything. Oh my God. If you are having a hard time, take a look at what you are trying to force and stop doing that. Oh my God, not forcing stuff. And you know what? I had this epiphany on an exercise bike in a Soul Cycle class a couple months ago, probably like 4 months ago or so, when I was like, oh my goodness, because there's a real difference between pushing yourself, forcing yourself, and when there's some resistance to move through, right? And I realized that sometimes I was really resistant to pushing myself, and then I realized, oh, there's a difference between pushing and forcing. Sometimes I need to push myself. I need to push myself a little bit through some resistance to get to a thing that I know I want or that I know is good for me, right? But I never need to force. And forcing is like when you're trying to do something and it's just not working out. When life is continuing to show you like, no, now is not the time, or that is not the way, or this is not the person, and you're still trying to force. And forcing usually has some aspect of like control and manipulation. And I'm just not into that anymore. I'm not into trying to control things I can't control. And I've been working on that for years, but it really landed this past year. And that is a big way I get joy in my life. I don't try to control things that I can't control because that gives me so much more energy, so much more space, so much more time, right? I only focus on the things that I can control and affect. And anytime I notice myself, oh, actually, this isn't really in my control. Actually, I can't do anything about that. Actually, analyzing that, thinking about that isn't going to make it any better. I really just do need to surrender and get out of the way and let life show me. Allow. I got a tattoo back in June that says, allow, comma, beloved, ... And the point of that is, to me, allowing is the combination of both surrender and trust and faith, right? That's allowing to me. And I put the comma beloved so that I could feel like it was a reminder from God or a reminder from the Divine Mother being like, hey, beloved, just allow. I got this. You are being helped right now. And then the ... is for the implication of what's yet to come. That's likely beyond my imagining. And so I love that. And that's another thing that brings me immense, immense joy is having a deep connection to and relationship with God and the Divine Mother. And I say it that way because for me, in my context, I really do believe in a divine father and a divine mother. And because I grew up in a religion that was based on a masculine God, when I say God, I'm usually thinking of like masculine God, but also like God in general. But then I really have cultivated over the last few years a really special relationship with the Divine Mother, specifically through archetypes and deities like Mother Mary and Isis and Gaia and some other amazing goddess archetypes. And I don't worship the deity, but it's like the energy. It's what it allows me to embody and embrace and dance with and be with in my life and express in myself by engaging in these really tangible ways, reading stories and mythology and things like that, noticing where these themes come up in my own life, where it feels like I'm being guided and just like letting it that, again, this goes back to the first thing I said, letting that feel really magical and mysterious, but also like I am so divinely supported by forces that I can't even imagine how powerful they are, how much grace is available, like the infinite intelligence and love and compassion and possibility. I don't think I already said compassion, but really deeply cultivating compassion brings me great joy. Because I I have tons of anger. I have tons of rage. I have tons of things to be upset about in my life. But when I can be compassionate and know that people are always doing their best, sometimes people's best sucks, right? It's literally not good enough for us. But that doesn't mean I can't have compassion for someone. A lot of people's shitty behaviors and actions, there are explanations for why, but it doesn't excuse it. I don't have to tolerate it, but I can certainly be compassionate. I don't have to hold ill will against anyone. I can want to not have someone in my life, but I don't wish them ill, Karma will take care of that. It's not my responsibility. Appreciating differences between people, really allowing for grief and anger to be valid emotions that I have. I didn't realize, y'all, how much grief and anger I had in my system. And just allowing it to come up and in and through and ride the waves and not make a lot of meaning out of it, not get stuck in it, is it's an amazing thing. And I will say, for those of you that are looking at the Unconsume Yourself training, we spend a lot of time on this. We spend a lot of time on how to be with. There's a whole module. One of the topics, one of the weeks is on unhealthy reactions versus healthy responses. This brings so much joy to be able to be confronted with something or be confronted by someone and not have to have an unhealthy reaction that will either hurt me or hurt them or damage a relationship permanently or cause a mess that I'm going to have to clean up later. To be able to have the space and to be with my feelings and be mature about it and be intelligent about it and honor it, that brings me a lot of joy because I can move through things faster. I don't have to dwell in things. I don't have to hold on to things. I don't have to feel constant resentment or the need to control or prove anything. It's so good. Because the joy is often on the other side of something hard and painful. So often I think when we bypass, we're trying to not deal with the thing and just skip right to the joy or the gratitude or the appreciation or the love or the lesson. But we're just going to have to come back to it and keep repeating it. So actually leaning into these things and moving through them has brought me immense joy. Not having to repeat the same mistakes anymore. Being able to see red flags. Joy. Being able to say no to people sooner. Even that experience that I had with that man this year, it lasted 4 months, instead of a year and a half or 3 or 4 years, like some of my past relationships. So doing the work to move through things quicker. So much joy. Being in integrity. Being in nature, as well as just allowing myself to fully be. I have a lot of childlike wonder and awe and curiosity and enthusiasm. And at times I have felt self-conscious about that. People in my past have shamed me for that, teased it, made fun of it, told me they thought it was fake, and it made other people really uncomfortable, and so I dialed it down. And so I have dialed that shit all the way back up, and it is just so freaking fun. So fun. Brings so much joy. So that was my laundry list of ways to cultivate joy during difficult times. I hope you all can take any of that and run with it and incorporate it into your own life. Obviously, I have a lot of ways that I work with people to help them do these things. The Unconsume Yourself training is one way, Wild Soul Movement Weekend workshops, the insider content that I share on the Patreon, which is over at patreon.com/Elizabeth Untamed, as well as in 2019, I will be bringing back the new and improved version of the Wild Soul Movement virtual program. It'll be a year-long program. We'll be spending a year together. It's going to be so beautiful and amazing. I'm so excited and looking forward to that because I believe in the power of these containers and doing the deep work together as a group, as a community. So if you need help with any of that, there are plenty of ways that I can help you with that. Go to wildsoulmovement.com. Click around. There's resources. There's applications to work with me one-on-one. There's events and workshops, all kinds of great stuff. And that's another thing. I'll wrap up on that. What brings me joy is being able to create. If I have to go through hard things, if you have to go through hard things, to then be able to turn around and help other people because we have learned and we have grown and we have healed is, to me, like my buddy Dr. Matt once said, service is infinitely scalable joy. And I could not possibly agree with that more. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you just always for being here, for tuning in, for sharing the episodes, for pinging me on Instagram, for doing Instagram stories about these podcast episodes, for all of you that are members of the Patreon. I'm enjoying that so much. It's so cool to get to know you all, to have that community forum where we could be together in a more intimate setting, practice wild soul movement. And I'm also really looking forward to, as I do more stand-up comedy, people are always asking me, post a video, post a video. I will not be posting comedy videos publicly, especially as I'm like working on material and stuff. But I will be posting clips to the Patreon. So if you are wanting to see how all that is going, which by the way, I'm not promising y'all that it's good yet, because it's really not, but it's a process, and at the very least it's entertaining. So as I embrace my inner entertainer, I will be sharing that on the Patreon. So thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed this. Share it up if it was useful to you. As always, if you're listening in iTunes, leave us a review, leave us a rating. That helps other people find the show. And this is it, y'all. This is 35. Thank you so much.
And unity, that whole concept of unity really does, at its core, it says that folks have to conform to be together.
Right.
And when I'm in solidarity with you, I don't necessarily have to agree with everything you do. Right? But I know we're going the same way, right? Like, we're trying to make that same outcome, right? But it is not the sense that you and I have to be you. Like, I have to literally fit in to be accepted.
Yeah. So the distinction I'm hearing is unity requires conformity, solidarity does not.
No, from my perspective, it does not require conformity. And solidarity is a way to show up so this unity tries to give you this undivided entity, which we know isn't true and doesn't happen.
Right.
So, and solidarity, I don't have to be you to understand your humanity.
Yes.
I don't have to have your lived experience to know that you deserve health care. I don't have to be a woman in a wheelchair to know that that woman in a wheelchair deserves all of these things simply because she's human.
Yeah.